welcome to another episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I'm Jordan.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm Matt.
How are we all doing this weekend?
I know, honestly, all of us, at least when it comes to the football side of things, NFL-wise, are not doing that well. I'd argue I'm probably doing the worst because that was one of the worst football games I've ever watched last night as a Niner fan. But we move. It's only I only spent about $200 to go to Monday Night Football next week, so let's hope that we can come back and win again.
I like it. Yeah, it's been rough. And Aaron, the only reason I will say that you might have it worse football-wise, even though my Raiders are 0-3, is because my beloved Florida State Seminoles are 4-0, baby.
Yeah.
4-0, back in the top 25. I don't want to say Florida State's back, but, they might be back.
Stanford's down bad.
Well, it happens. Hey, we can't all have great football programs. So, it is what it is. Matt, what about you? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I think I posted my story Saturday morning at 2:30. So Saturday was pretty much a wash for me. I usually like to get some work done on Saturday, but I had no energy at all. So that was just a lay around the house day.
All right. I like it. That's what Saturdays should be for. Well, Saturdays were for laying around the house. Friday was for high school football. And Matt, let's start with you because you probably have the two most impressive wins out of everyone in the region. Talk to me about where you were at Friday night and what you saw from some of your other teams as well.
Yeah, well, Folsom De La Salle lived up to what most people thought it would be. It was a great game. Folsom defense led them in the first half. We kept De La Salle out of the end zone. And, Folsom scored on their first drive, which was nice. I mean, they, got the lead. But it probably gave, even though they didn't score again until the second half and they didn't score a touchdown, probably gave Austin Mack some confidence and the offense some confidence. Hey, we can score on these guys. So, and then they kicked a field goal late in the second half, so they're up 10-0 at the break. And then the second half was kind of a completely different story. De La Salle had the ball 3 times, scored touchdowns all 3 times, so they got their offense moving and running. And Folsom's, defense, I don't know if they got tired or De La Salle just picked it up, but, they took a back seat to Folsom's offense because Folsom's offense really had a good second half. Delaware scored their first touchdown to make it a 10-7 game, get it close. Next possession, Folsom goes down the field and scores. So that was pretty big. Then Delaware scores back-to-back touchdowns to go up 20-17 with 3 minutes to go. And Folsom gets a good kickoff return to the 50-yard line by Greco Carrillo. And then, they moved the ball right down the field easily. I don't think they had any third downs until they get to the 3-yard line. Then it's first and goal from the 3 with, I don't know how much time's left at that point. But anyway, first down, they try a run, lose a yard. So second down, 1, try a pass, lose a yard. So it's third and goal from the 4, I think. And what are we going to do? So they pass the ball shy of the end zone. I think they had a guy in the back they could have tried to throw it to for a touchdown, but they passed it, shy of the end zone to Donovan Maxton Harley. Didn't get in, but he got 2 or 3 yards. So it's, 4th down and 1 now, game on the line. 20 seconds left to go, I think. And so what are they going to do? And I hear they call timeout. I hear Doherty on the head, called Doherty, Folsom coach on the head said, do we kick a field goal? I'm thinking, oh my God, no, don't kick a field goal. So, obviously they didn't choose to kick a field goal. And they ran a play, as ridiculous as this may sound, they ran a play that they don't have in the playbook. They don't practice it. It's they just ran a quarterback sneak. But Doherty explained after the game, he said last year when they had Tyler Tremaine, they would run the ball with him down near the end zone. But this year with Austin Mack, they just kind of handed off to the running backs. They don't really like him running the ball down there. So that's why they said they don't rep it. They don't practice it. So, but assistant coach Jordan Banning said, hey, why don't we take the 6'6" guy over the top? Just reach the ball over with his long arms. So Doherty liked the idea. That's what they went with, and he did. He did over the top, touchdown, Folsom win. So it's just it was a great game for the Bulldogs, and second time they beat them in a row down there. So that's the first time any NorCal team has done that since the late 70s. So that's feather in the cap there.
And Matt, so De La Salle's kind of been the boogeyman for Folsom for, the last decade. And I know people have kind of talked of, is the torch kind of getting passed? Is De La Salle's kind of reign of terror over Northern California over? Now you have the Folsoms, the Sarahs, even St. Francis starting to make noise, but now Folsom's got 2 wins in a row over them. So do you think in a way Folsom's almost becoming the new coaching staff and the new program at De La Salle's boogeyman?
I don't know. I mean, I heard, I don't know a lot about De La Salle, but I heard they have 2 players out for the season injured that are really good. And, just they might have, they're not quite as good as they were last year. I mean, Folsom, yes, they beat them twice a year. I'm not trying to take anything away from Folsom, but I'm not going to sit here and say De La Salle's done. I mean, their history.
No, I mean, I think they're still going to be competitors in NorCal for a long time. But, it's nice to see some other names starting to knock them off once in a while.
It is. And Folsom, let's just look at their roster. Folsom is senior heavy, I think. So, they lose every wide receiver except for one next year. Basically, the guys catching the balls now. So how good are they going to be next year? They're going to have guys step up. So, But anyway, that was a great win for the Bulldogs. And then Vista also had a good win. Big win over Capital Christian. They'd never beaten them. And again, I don't think Capital Christian's the team they were when they won 3 of the last 4 titles. I mean, I think they're 1-4 in the season, or they've only won a game, I think. So, but again, I'm not taking anything with Vista. Johnny Kent, 17 out of 21, 263 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, you can't knock those numbers. Thomas Keegan, 84 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Cruz Santero, 8 catches for 110 yards, 1 touchdown. He was our leading receiver. Defensively, the Eagles, obviously, they got the shutout, but Matt Long and Camden King each had an interception and fumble recovery. And Long returned his for 55 yards for a touchdown. So that was just a complete win. And Coach Landis said that was their best game of the season. And he said the week leading up to that game last week, their practice, that was the best week of practice they've had in 2 years. And the best part about it was, he goes, the coaches didn't have to get on it. It was player led. And the coaches, they always love to see that. So, very, very big win for the Eagles. And now they're in control of their own destiny to win the league title, which is, every team wants to win the league. And their biggest competition the rest of the year figures to be Christian Brothers, and they have them at home the last game of the season. So that all is pointed in favor of Vista winning that league title.
Awesome. And Aaron, I know you had some impressive showings as well from your team. You saw a pretty fun comeback. Talk to me about what you saw on Friday night.
Yeah. So I was at Rockland for their game Friday night. It was actually the opening of their new field and track. They had a ribbon cutting ceremony for it before the game. Field's great, by the way. It looks great, feels great. Track looks great. So really cool what they have going on over there. But they took on Glacier Peak from Snohomish, Washington, which is just northeast of Seattle, and that proved to be one heck of a ball game. It didn't look like it though in the beginning. Rockland was down 14-0. They got nothing going offensively in the first half. I think they picked up 2 first downs in the first half. Glacier Peak got things going in the first quarter as a fumble was returned 35 yards for a touchdown from Trey Lechner, who's probably the best player on their team. He's a commit to Washington State. And then it was pretty much scoreless for a while. It was just tons of punts, turnovers on downs. Rockland threw an interception. And then we get to the fourth quarter, and Lechner scores a 1-yard touchdown. They drove down the field about 70 yards. So it's 14-0 with 10:50 to go. Rockland gets the ball. It looks like they're going to have to punt it away again. I think it's 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7, 9:28 left in the ball game. It's 10 o'clock, and the clock struck 10, and all of a sudden the lights go out. Lights went out, and it was a really weird experience because, I've covered high school sports now for good part of 8 years, ever since I've been in high school. I've never seen the lights go out at a football game like that. So it was made for an interesting environment for those 5 minutes. And the first thing that kind of went through my head was the Niners-Ravens Super Bowl back in 2013. And what happened in that game, the Niners were down 28-6, and they came back and made it a 1-score game and almost walked it off and won at the end. And I was thinking through my head, I'm like, momentum's huge in high school. Rockland needs this break right now, and they need to come out and get something going. And they did. First play on that 3rd down out of the lights coming back on 5 minutes later, there was a lateral pass from Joey Roberts to Brody Desario, who threw it down to Caleb Larson downfield for a 38-yard touchdown. That provided the spark that Rockland needed. They forced a punt on the next drive. And then Rockland drove it down again was about 6 minutes to go. And on another third down play, Roberts connected with Larson for 40 yards. Larson broke about 3 tackles on the play, got past midfield. A few plays later, Roberts connects with Mason Silva for a 16-yard gain, and that sets up a 17-yard rushing touchdown for Mason Silva, which now ties the score with 3:50 to go. Crowd was going nuts. It was absolutely crazy environment. So Glacier Peak gets back out on the field with a chance to win the ball game. One thing that killed both teams, it seemed like all night, was penalties. Rockland finished with 9 penalties for 72 yards, and I'll get in a little bit into things that Rockland needs to clean up. But Glacier Peak was no stranger to penalties in this game either. They had 7 penalties for 80 yards, and they came at horrible times. They had 2 penalties on their final drive, and then Tom Sakinski got a big sack. So Glacier Peak was backed up inside their own 10-yard line, forced to punt the ball away on 4th down with roughly about 2 minutes to go. And the ball gets snapped. It looks like a good snap, and it looks like it's going to be a good kick, but Rockland is able to get the block. They block the punt. It goes out of the end zone, and it was Nate Martin, junior Nate Martin, with the block. It goes out of the end zone for a safety. So Rockland has the lead 16-14. They get the ball back after the free kick, and they pick up 1 first down after a Glacier Peak offside. And that was all she wrote. It was one heck of a comeback. One of the most impressive games I've seen so far this year. Like I was saying, Rockland's got a lot they need to clean up. They need to clean up penalties. They need to clean up a lot offensively because they did not throw the ball that well. They didn't get a lot going, but defense played solid all night, and that's where this game was won. And a big win for the Thunder as they're going into the Corey Bowl this week, Rockland versus Whitney. One other thing I'll say about this game before I pass it back to you, Jordan. Something that was interesting is all night I was looking over to the Glacier Peak sideline where all the fans were, and there was a decent amount of them, especially in the student section. I was thinking, okay, maybe that's a JV team, maybe that's a freshman team, but that's still a pretty big, group. And we get into about the 4th quarter, and somebody let me know they walked over there. And we noticed some people were going into the stands throughout the game. That wasn't all Glacier Peak's fans. It was actually some people from Whitney, from the X Factor student section, heating up the rivalry a week before the Corey Bowl, going over there and cheering against the Thunder and for Glacier Peak. So that sets up, that definitely heats up the rivalry going into this week and made for an interesting environment.
I love that. I mean, high school football was great. And I mean, we'll touch on it in a little bit, but it's rivalry week in the SFL this week. I think the 3 biggest rivalries in that league and 3 of the biggest rivalries in that area are all squaring off this week. But first, I'll talk about where I was at Friday night. I was at Sutter and Colfax. Sutter, newcomer to the PBL. They're coming from the northern section. They haven't lost a league game since 2015, and they're 54-2 in league play since 2011. But, everyone's saying Sac Joaquin's a whole different beast in the northern section. They get defending PBL champion Colfax in Colfax last Friday night. I had back in June, I had this one circled. I said the winner of this game is going to be the team that wins the league. And that was determined Friday night. Sutter ended up winning it 42-6, but I'll say the game was much closer than the score showed. For 3 quarters, the Falcons were right there in it. First play of the game, though, their first drive of the game, Sutter forces a 3-and-out, blocks a punt, falls on it in the end zone. Not the start you want if you're Colfax. Colfax moves the ball well, ends up forcing a missed field goal. Moves the ball well, has to punt again. Sutter gets it. Colfax makes a goal line stand, ends up forcing a missed field goal. And then Colfax actually came back early in the 2nd quarter, and they connected on a 12-yard pass from River Roach to Malachi Thompson. So bad snap makes it 7-6, but it's like, okay, Colfax is, standing in there. And I think the question everyone had is, I mean, Sutter's first game, they played Marysville, who's a decent PVL team, but I think everyone's question is, what's it going to look like when they play Colfax? That's really their true measuring stick. And then Sutter went down. They got some points before the end of the half, so it's 14-6 at halftime. But at this point, Colfax's defense is just gassed. I mean, they had, guys coming on off the sideline, and they were going to throw up. Like, they were on the field a lot. They were exhausted, and Sutter just was pounding the ball at them with their running game. And in the second half, the floodgates kind of just opened. Even the 3rd quarter, actually, it was still fairly close. Sutter came down. They scored a touchdown but Colfax was still in it. It was 21-6 after 3. And it was like Colfax had some times moving the ball where you're like, okay, you know what? They can still win this game. In the fourth quarter, I think that war of attrition that the Huskies were pulling just kind of set in. They ended up putting up 21 points in the fourth quarter to take it 42-6. The three-headed monster in the backfield, Troy Brucey, Joshua Gregor, Robbie Fapula, averaged 8.7 yards per carry. I mean, Gregor's 6'3", 215, and Fapula is like 5'9", 230, and running both those guys at you 30 times. I mean, that's exhausting for a defensive line. Colfax also had a huge loss in the game. They starting tight end and D end Kenny Goal went down. I don't know the extent of that injury yet, but he wasn't able to return Friday night. That's a huge loss to them. And I mean, Colfax had their chances to win that game. I mean, they had 3 deep passes that were either dropped or just a little bit off on the throw. Sutter had a few big conversions. But I mean, Colfax had the chances to win the game. Colfax also had a few times on fourth down where they went for it in scoring position. It was kind of that awkward spot where it's not close enough for a field goal, but not far enough for a punt. So they ended up going for it and getting stuffed. So, I mean, that's a game where the score was 42-6. It really could have been a 35-28 game had Colfax capitalized on a few of the things, but it was just a game where the deck was kind of stacked against them. Shout out to the Sutter offensive line. They were fantastic. Then interesting tidbit from this game, Sutter actually didn't complete a pass all game. 0 completions the entire game. They were 0 for 4. And Colfax, I mean, Sutter still ran for 300 something yards. So, you know, it almost reminded me of watching like an Army Navy game, the way they controlled the pace of that game. Colfax just, you know, they made too many costly mistakes, and the defense did a good job, but they just were on the field so much, and I think they just got worn out. I think if you play that game 10 times, I think Sutter still wins the majority of them. I don't think you get as lopsided of a score as we saw. And then a couple other games I want to touch on. Placer, and this will kind of go into the players of the week this week. But Placer ended up being Rio Linda 56-0. It was a running clock in the second quarter. But shout out to the Placer defensive line. They held Rio Linda to just 80 yards offensively, and Rio Linda had -8 yards rushing on the day. So, I mean, that's a pretty dominant line performance. I know Rio Linda's not the strongest opponent, but I mean, if you hold someone to that, that's impressive. Another impressive defensive performance, Luke Jeffers of Bear River. He had 2 tackles for loss, a block kick, and a pick 6 in Friday's game against 12 Bridges. Of course, Aaron, as we know, that was a crazy game. 12 Bridges. Bear River was actually up 16-13 at half. 12 Bridges ended up returning the kickoff for a touchdown to start the second half. Bear River came back and scored, and then 12 Bridges ended up pulling it out in the end, 25-23. But my player of the week this week goes to Malia Gustafson, a sophomore golfer at Colfax. She shot a 63 in 18 holes at Timber Creek on Tuesday in the PBL tournament. It's a school record. That's good for 9 under par if you're keeping track at home. She won the tournament individually by 23 strokes. I mean, all I can say, if I shoot a 63 in mini golf, I'm stoked. So, I mean, all I can say is I need golf lessons from her, because I don't know many. I mean, if you put a PGA guy out there at Timber Creek, I don't know if you can guarantee they're going to shoot a 63. I mean, that's incredible.
I'll put things in context. Last year, I covered an SFL tournament at Timber Creek for Granite Bay, and they had a golfer, Annika Varma, who is now playing, I want to say, at the University of Oregon. Now, I don't know if they played the Whites or the Reds, because I mean, obviously they're pretty close regardless of the tee box. She shot 64 and she had 2 eagles. If she shot 63, that's just wild to me. And then another thing that's crazy to go off of that, the second best score in that tournament came from 12 Bridges, and it was an 86. So she beat the second best player by 23 strokes. That's insane.
It's unbelievable. I talked to her mom as the head coach there, and she told me she never hit water once and never hit a bunker once. And if you've been to Timber Creek, I mean, that course is littered with traps. Like, the fact that she kept a clean game there as a sophomore in high school, I mean, that course has me throwing my clubs like Happy Gilmore at times. And I just got showed up by a 15-year-old girl on it. I mean, incredible performance by Gustafson.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you? I know you had a few impressive performances, and you're the golf guy. But talk to me about some of your impressive players.
Yeah, you can tell by the hat. First off, I want to make a correction. I said 7 penalties for 80 yards for Glacier Peak. It was actually 10 penalties for 110 yards, so even worse on that front. But getting back to that game, Rockland, like I said, their defense was all over the field all night. Sophomore Derek Keeley, who's really stepped into Derek Houston's role and filled it very well. I mean, obviously, I don't think you're ever going to replace a player of that caliber. And I do think he'll be back at some point of the season, but Derek Keeley's been playing great. He had 13 tackles and a sack on Friday night. Austin Adams totaled 10 tackles. Roseville, Joel Bradley had a 47-yard touchdown catch, a 43-yard touchdown catch, kicked 4 extra points and made a 25-yard field goal in a 39-14 win over Yuba City. That's a huge win for the Tigers, big win on the road. West Park quarterback DeVell Barksdale had 384 yards of total offense and 4 touchdown passes with a 73% completion percentage and a 34-19 win over Chico on the road. 2 of those touchdowns were to wide receiver Ryan Sisson. Roseville Junior Connor, I'm actually covering water polo this week. I'll be going to a couple Roseville games tomorrow, but Roseville Junior Connor Bales scored 6 goals in a 16-6 water polo win over Laguna Creek. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays tomorrow. Speaking of water polo, Granite Bay senior Avery Mole, I was at this game, scored 7 goals in a 13-4 water polo win over Oak Ridge, and she's been playing great all season. She is second in goals behind Heidi Green for Del Oro, who I believe has 70, which is top 12 in the nation. For Lincoln, my athlete of the week is actually going to be, since we cover William Jessup for Lincoln, Kaylee Gillespie, who is a Folsom alumni. I believe I spoke about her maybe a couple of weeks ago. She scored 2 goals in a 4-0 win over Lincoln University, not to be confused with Lincoln, California. Lincoln University is actually in Oakland. She scored 2 goals in a 4-0 win over them on Friday. So that's my athlete of the week for Lincoln. And then for South Placer, this week, I'm going to go with another sport I haven't done an athlete of the week for yet. And Matt, I believe you were actually at the game on Thursday, but volleyball senior for Whitney, Caitlin Cochran. So she had 12 kills against Folsom, along with, I want to say, 13 assists on Tuesday. And then she played very well against Oak Ridge in a 5-set loss also on Thursday. Also for Whitney, I wanted to shout out junior Avra Kopech for cross country, who finished 3rd out of 111 runners at the Jessup Invitational on Saturday. So those are my performances, really spread across all different sports this week, and it's nice to see.
All right, Matt, what about you? You guys had some impressive performances down there in Folsom. Who stuck out to you?
Yeah, I Vista hasn't had the athlete of the week here yet, so I asked Coach Landis, who he'd suggest, and he went with senior linebacker receiver Cruz Santero. Not just because of statistics, but they asked Cruz, I guess his main position is wide receiver. They need him playing linebacker full time, so he's playing linebacker full time, and now that's kind of diminished his role in offense a bit. He only gets like half the snaps now because he's resting, I guess. He's not. So anyway, that's sacrificing what he wants to do for the betterment of the team. Any coach loves that. And better yet, against Capital Christian, a big win by the team. Santero led the team in receiving. So I don't know how much he played, but he catches 110 yards on a touchdown. So not only is he doing something good for the team by playing defense, but he's also still continuing to do well on offense. So big game for him. And then also I have a team of the week. Just kind of popped in my head when Aaron was talking about golf. Folsom's golf team last Tuesday, 4 years ago, Folsom had 4 golfers on their team. That's it. Now they have about 24, not all varsity. I think it's 7 varsity, about 15 JV players. That's a big way from 4. Tuesday they lost to defending state champions Granite Bay by 1 stroke. So they've come a long way in 4 years, and just wanted to give them some notoriety there.
All right, I like it. And before we get on to next week, let's talk about a couple things we learned from the games last week. I'll kind of rifle through mine pretty quick before I kick it over to you, Aaron. The first thing I learned, Sutter is going to dominate the PVL this year, I'm pretty sure. And honestly, I think they could compete and likely should be in a league like the FBL. Even with 800 kids, they've got 50 kids on that football team. I mean, they're big, they're strong, they're well coached. They are a team that is going to run through that league. and staking on the PDL. I think they've got 2 section title contenders. I think Sutter's a contender in D5. I think D5 is shaping up to be an Escalon versus Sutter final, which is going to be an incredible small school game. I think Colfax is still a contender in D6. And also, I think the Bruins are kind of a frisky team in the FVL or PVL, if we can call it that. They're 1-4, but they're not going to roll over easy. They stuck with 12 Bridges, and they almost pulled that upset the other day. Then one last thing with league, I think the FVL, Aaron, we've kind of talked about this off screen. I think it's going to come down now to the West Park game against Placer for who wins that league. The SFL, I think we're going to get a lot clearer of a look at after this week. But Aaron, kind of kicking it to you. I mean, like I said, I think the FVL is Placer's to lose, but it's going to come down to that Placer West Park game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think they play the second to last week of the season too. West Park I think they're going to have an easy go of it in the beginning, but then they play Placer and then Lincoln for their last 2 games. Again, after what I saw from Lincoln last week, I can't say they're a contender right now, but I do know just from seeing that team for years on end, they will find a way to claw back and be competitive in the league. I don't see it, but again, they play Placer in a couple of weeks, and I'm interested to see how they fight in that one. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think it comes down to that Placer West Park game on the 21st of October. But in terms of things I learned from what I saw last week, regardless of how good the Rockland defense is, they cannot keep bailing out that offense, especially in the SFL. The Thunder were on defense for nearly 75% of the first half, and I actually have the exact time frame here, 6 minutes and 20 seconds out of 24 minutes in the first half they had the ball. That is unacceptable when it comes to the SFL. You are going to get blown out if you do that. If the offense can't get it together, they're going to struggle big time. I even talked to Coach Adams after the game, and he said that 16 points in the SFL ain't going to cut it. It's not going to win games. He's 100% right, and they're gonna learn that this week against Whitney if they can't get it together. So that's gonna be a problem for them. Hopefully they can clean that up. If Roseville plays like they did on Friday night against Yuba City, they could win out and win the CVC. I mean, I know Antelope right now, I think they're the only team left that is undefeated in that league. But, they still got to play Endercombe. They still got to play Wood Creek. If those teams catch Antelope on a bad night, if they have a good night, anything can happen. I think Roseville opened a lot of eyes with a 25-point win. And if Graydon can continue to be efficient, they can have other players step up and play well, especially on the defensive front. I don't think I see anyone stopping them other than maybe Endercombe as well. Another thing, and I kind of talked about this earlier, but rivalries in high school can culminate in some much-see matchups. Whitney Rockland this week is going to be the 12th annual Quarry Bowl. Rockland hasn't lost it since 2015, but it'll be interesting to see how the student sections kind of jaw at each other, because I know that's always an interesting one. The other thing I learned, that games are going to start getting really hard to choose as we get into league play, and we're going to get into it here in a second, because I know, Jordan, I think me and you both don't know exactly where we're going yet this week. There's so many great matchups to choose from what to watch, but it's going to be very exciting these next few weeks of high school football.
Definitely. Matt, and what about you? What are some things you learned this week?
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I meant to hold it for this one. I just said it earlier, but Vista Lago is in control of their own destiny now with the big win over Cap. And I don't see them, since they've been in the Capital Athletic League, I don't think they've ever lost to El Camino, Del Campo, or Rio. Maybe without looking, I think they've never lost to any of those teams. So it comes down to them and Christian Brothers last week of the season. So they're feeling good about themselves. They've won 2 games in a row for the first time this season. So you can say they're on a bit of a roll now. And they had El Camino this week, and that I would think they would. That's a game they should win. In Folsom, if you would have told anybody in Folsom's coaching staff you're 4-1 after your non-league schedule, they take it. It hasn't always been pretty on either side of the ball. Like the offense struggles one week, defense struggles next week. But they found a way to win games. They're coming together as a team, and they're motivated because they were the 3rd place team in the SFL last year. So don't think that because they're playing all these tough teams and they think they're gonna roll over these teams. They want to win the league. They want to avenge the losses they had last year. So they're coming together. They're going to be a tough out in the SFL.
All right. And, before we get on to some other sports, I guess we'll talk about where we're going to be Friday night. Aaron, I know you said you've got some options. Talk about your options and where you might be Friday.
Yeah, so the first one is obviously the Quarry Bowl. This has become one of the best rivalries in all of Placer County and honestly the entire Sacramento area. Crosstown rivalry, like I said, it's 12th annual Quarry Bowl. Rockland hasn't lost since 2015, but Whitney wants to avenge that, and I think this Whitney team this year is better than the Whitney team of last year. They have lost to two really good Clovis and Heritage teams, but they're 3-2 right now. I know they're hungry. Thunder are riding off of a ton of momentum after their comeback win. While the Whitney's coming off of a bye. The thing that's crazy about this game is, it's sad because both these teams are so good, but I don't know if this game, I'll just say it, this could be for deciding last place in the SFL. And I'm sorry, that's no disrespect to Rockland or Whitney. I think they're both great teams, but you just look at how top heavy and just how stacked this SFL is with, Folsom, who's 4-1, but they're playing like a team that could be undefeated if they were playing anybody else. Oak Ridge undefeated, Del Oro undefeated, Granite Bay undefeated, and they haven't played scrub teams. They played great teams like Del Oro, especially. It's sad, but this could honestly be just for deciding last place. My heart tells me that Rockland is going to win this once again, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Wildcats come out firing, especially if Rockland can't get it together on offense. I'll say 24-17 Rockland. I do think it'll be a little bit of a lower scoring game than we've seen before. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this one went either way. My second option, which I'm not sure if I want to do this one or not, but I mean, it's going to be a great game because this could honestly – I know Colfax is still going to be in there, but this could potentially decide second place in the PVL as well. 12 Bridges is 5-1 in their first varsity season. They're going to be playing center this week. A Coach Bean varsity team in Lincoln. Bean's been was with Lincoln from 2014 to 2021, and then he's been with 12 Bridges the last 2 years. A varsity team for Coach Bean in Lincoln has yet to go 5-1. 12 Bridges has a realistic shot of being second, and the 25-23 win over Bear River, while it was closer than expected, keep in mind that these are still junior Rhinos that are beating teams with seniors, which is impressive. Nathan Crawford had 3 touchdowns on Friday night, including a kickoff return, while Eli Wade had a score. Center is evenly matched in my opinion. They're 4-1 with their only loss being a dogfight against Colfax. I don't believe they have played anyone great outside of them. However, the Rhinos had to travel and take on a really solid Pioneer team. I think this will be a great battle. I'm going to go with the Rhinos barely edging this one out and going 29-26 in this one, which should set up for an interesting couple of weeks going forward, because I know that they're on bye on the 7th, and then they come back and they run the gauntlet with Sutter, Colfax, and it's going to be interesting. But I'm going to go with the Rhinos barely edging it out against Center.
All right, I like it. And then, Matt, let's throw it to you. You got another pretty big SFL matchup going. What do you expect out of that?
Yeah, I'll definitely be up at Oak Ridge to watch them in Folsom. I'm very excited to see this game because, I can see it going a couple different directions on how the game's played. Oak Ridge has looked so dominant and made it look so easy, but they haven't played the schedule. I mean, their opponents are 11-13 this year. Folsom hasn't always looked like the Folsom of past, but they're 4-1. And their opponents are 17-8, so they played a much tougher schedule. So I'm just really excited to watch, see how this plays out. Like I said, I could see a way Oak Ridge is going to win the game. It wouldn't surprise me if Oak Ridge beat them. Wouldn't surprise me if Folsom beat them. So that's why I'm going there, and that's why I'm excited to see it. All
right. Do you have a prediction? Final score?
I got to pick Folsom just because they played the tougher schedule and they found ways to win. I'm going to say it's probably not going to be this high scoring, but I'll go 42-28.
All right. I like it. And Aaron, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. The SFL, it's a tough one with the rivalries. I might be biased, but I would say the best rivalry in Placer County is happening in the SFL Friday night. But it's not Rockland Whitney. I think it's Granite Bay Del Oro. Now, I could be biased because I'm a Del Oro alum. I can tell you a little backstory with this rivalry. My senior year, a couple kids, I'll say it wasn't me, but I know who it was, and I'm sworn to secrecy on it, went and spray painted Granite Bay's Grizzly statue black and gold on the morning of the rivalry. And Granite Bay responded by coming back and spray painting our field. So these two schools go back and forth. They don't like each other. This has been a huge rivalry over the years, The winner of this one's gone on to section championships, state championships. That's the first time they're actually meeting up undefeated since 2009. I think there's going to be a heavy run game behind Granite Bay's running attack with Carter Jackson and Del Oro's Kayasea. Caden Pinnock for Del Oro's impressed me so far this year. He's gotten better every time he touches the ball. And honestly, I mean, they say defense wins championships, and I think it wins rivalries too. And I'm going to pick the team with the better defense in this. So I'm going to go Del Oro 24-21. But the game I think I'm going to be at on Friday night is actually Valley Christian and Forest Hill. It's Forest Hill's first game since the mosquito fire came through town. And that town needs something to rally behind. I believe it's actually going to take place at Forest Hill. They returned to school today up there. And, you know, that team's coming off an 0-3 start, but they had their best season in a decade last year. They haven't played since September 2nd. And I talked to their coach, and they're using this time almost as like a mini camp 2.0. They're establishing some new things on offense, and they're almost hitting the reset button on their season. I think Forest Hill is going to come out fired up. I think the town behind them is going to be huge. I just have a hard time picking against them on this one. I'm going to say Forest Hill 28, Valley Christian 27. And I know we all have some other sports to cover too. So before I throw it back to you guys, I just want to talk about another great rivalry going on tonight in volleyball. Bear River is hosting Colfax and girls volleyball. Both teams are 5-1 in the PVL. The winner's going to hold sole possession in second place a little more than halfway through the league. These two have been great volleyball programs over the years, a great rivalry, both well coached, both athletic teams. I've seen on social media the student sections are planning to be there tonight. It should be a great environment. I'm looking forward to that. And also a shout out to my small school I cover, Forest Lake Christian Academy. Their girls volleyball team is 14-1 and looking for their third straight section championship appearance. So shout out to the other Falcons over at Forest Lake Christian. Matt, I know you got some good volleyball over there. What's going on this week?
Yeah, well, last Thursday, Aaron mentioned earlier, but Oak Ridge hosted Whitney, and they're two of the best girls teams in Northern California, and the match was a great match, 5 sets. Just great volleyball. So the SFL is probably the toughest girls volleyball league in Northern California too. So just good volleyball up here, and Oak Ridge won that game without two of their best players who are out injured. So, or one was sick, one was injured. So for them to win that game, just good for them. Good statement game. They protect their home court, and they do it without two of their better players. So that was a good win for the Trojans. And then this Thursday, Folsom hosts Oak Ridge, so I'll be hitting that one too. Oak Ridge probably the favorite there, but just two of my teams playing against each other before the football teams play on Friday. So that's where I'll be.
It's like a rivalry before the rivalry.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you?
So I was at let's see, it would have been Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night I was at 12 Bridges versus Colfax, and yeah, Colfax has got a good team. They played very well. They beat 12 Bridges in 3 sets. And 12 Bridges is 4-6, but they haven't had their top 2 players on the court at the same time yet, and that's going to be coming up pretty soon. It's Kata Merzian and Kendall Waddell. Is actually Waddell's first game playing of the season. And she played solid. I think that she's got to control her attacking play a little bit more. She missed a fair amount of kills. The Rhinos also got hurt when it came to service errors. They were not the best serving team, which is kind of new for them. They kind of got hurt with that on Wednesday night. Tonight, I'm going to be going to Lincoln and Oakmont, and I expect Lincoln to win, but I mean, they need a win. They've lost a few games lately, and obviously you're not going to be the same Lincoln team of old when Morgan Collier graduates the team, the best player in probably all of California. But they've still got talent, and I think that they're ready to pick up some league wins, and they need to do it here pretty soon if they're going to compete. I don't think they're going to win the league. I think Ponderosa is probably going to win the FVL. But if Lincoln can remain competitive, finish second or third, I think they'll get a decent seed for the playoffs. And, we'll see how far they go then. But yeah, I was very impressed with what I saw from Colfax with Yuba Roach, Ava Delaney. They played very well against the Rhinos on Wednesday night. I also wanted to shout out, going back to golf, you talked about your player from Colfax earlier. I wanted to talk about something that was pretty cool. So I did a story a few weeks ago on a Roseville golfer, Jasmine Hale, a freshman, who got a hole-in-one in a JV match at Indian Creek. But I have not talked about a another player who got a hole-in-one. This was last Monday at the FVL tournament. The FVL and the PVL were both playing at Timber Creek that day. Abigail Drennan for Lincoln, she got a hole-in-one on the 79-yard par 3 16th hole at Timber Creek last Tuesday. She hit a pitching wedge, hit the green, rolled in. It's such a great feeling for somebody who has been fortunately actually had the same gift of being able to do that in a match as well. I know how good that feels, and it's I know she's been amped up about it. I'm writing a little something about that, and then golf this week too. So 12 Bridges finished first in that PVL tournament as a team. I know Colfax came second. 12 Bridges with only juniors. They look good, and they're showing to be a pretty good program with coaches David Foxworthy and Eric Soto over there. So it was nice to watch that. Nice to see, players get hole-in-ones. It's just something that's so rare to see, and we've already seen 2 this season from my area.
Yeah, I just want the local golfers to stop finding new ways to rub in that they're better than me. It's really rude, to be honest. And I'm just, if you see me not at a game on Friday night, check the driving range, and I'm going to be there trying to figure some stuff out.
That's great.
All right. It seems like that's about it that we've got. Does anyone else have anything they want to add?
I'm good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with the SFL starting this week, I know we talk, obviously the other leagues are going to be competitive too, CVC, FVL, PVL. But I mean, seriously, when I say the SFL is the best it's ever been, I mean it. I mean, like I said, I feel bad for some teams who may be towards the bottom of that league, because I feel like everybody is going to make the playoffs. I think Whitney needs to get 1 win in league, and then they'll get the 4 threshold to make the playoffs. But I expect them to do that, because anything can happen on any given night, kind of like the NFL, as we've seen the first couple of weeks. And I really do think that everybody in the SFL is going to make playoffs and be a threat.
Hey, I don't. My memory's not the best, but I believe when Delaware won a state title in football a few years ago, they were 3rd in the SFL. So just because you don't finish first or second doesn't mean you can't have a successful season. So
exactly.
Oh, 100%. Argonaut won state last year, and I think they finished 2nd or 3rd in their league.
Well, look at Folsom. Folsom was 3rd in the league last year too. I mean, obviously they got hurt a little bit in one or two of these games, but I mean, so they came back and they made 1 NorCals. I mean, that's how good the league is.
I think the year Del Oro won in 2015, I believe it was the year they started 2-6 and they won 8 straight to win a state title. I think they finished 4th in the SFL that year.
Yeah.
And I think their run to the state title, they beat like 3 teams that beat them in the regular season in the playoffs. So, I mean, like we said, any given night, it's really any given night in the SFL.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I've been Jordan.
I've been Aaron.
Well, I'm Matt.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week.